Well, hello there. Hello. It's time to steal some sheep with Sheepstealer and Nettles. Friends, we have a very special live stream for you today. I would like to introduce my guest, known as the one and only Girl Nettles, Nettles cosplayer, actress, and all-around fabulous person, Girl Nettles. Hello, Nettles. Say hello. And I have muted you. This is entirely my fault. 1 second. You're just going to have to say hello again. No. Yes. Yes.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, they can.
Hi, I'm Nettles. Nice to meet everyone. I am a part of the fandom, so some of you probably have talked to me in the comments or argued with me because I am something of a shock jock. This is baby Sheepstealer. You know, just got drunk one night in the Vale. You know, none of your business, guys. But some things happened, and baby Sheepstealer's here. Okay, no questions.
Well, it's interesting.
Full consent.
There's rumors about nocturnal activities involving humans and sheep in both the Vale and the freehold of Valyria. So, connections. But yes, no one asks questions about what goes on in the pasture at night. Okay, this is a weird start. So, hello, everyone. Do you plug the book club by all means? I see Swagger Dagger. It's mentioning the book club, so feel free.
Hey!
Is there a book club?
Oh, the book club. It's on Discord. It's super secret. You have to be cool and you have to be smart. So I don't know.
Good way to start would be by following you on social media. Then maybe you're Girl Nettles on Twitter, right? At Girl Nettles.
Yes, please follow me. I'm Girl Nettles on Twitter. You can also find me on YouTube and Instagram. Follow me.
Very cool.
Hit me up and I'll give you the link to the Discord.
And you have just freshly fashioned your weirwood background there. Is that not the case?
I have. So, with COVID and everything, I set up my little home office. And since this is my space, I could be as weird as I wanted to be. So I wanted to feel like I was Ned, like cleaning a sword or two, like whenever I wanted to contemplate or creativity, like whatever I need, I wanted that little corner. So yeah, I've got my weirwoods. I don't know how far up you could see. I've got my stag, I'm not a traitor. I know who the rightful king is, Stannis. So a few, and a few awesome Song of Ice and Fire stuff. So I'm pretty excited. If anyone is going through like a bad time, depression or something, and you want something to get you out of the rut, do something like this. Even if it's your car, whatever space that you have to yourself, decorate it. Do something artsy. It's the most healing I've done like in the past 5 years.
Yeah, I've turned the camera around a couple times at my house, but we're sitting in my living room here. This is one of the walls in my living room, so it's just kind of it's a living room on one side and a YouTube studio on the other side. But we are here. So guys, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about Nettles and Sheepstealer. We're also gonna go through just some random ass shit about House of the Dragon that's fun and entertaining. I'm going to get Nettles' take on various parts of the story, but we will start off with the Sheepstealer and the Nettles stuff. And in case you haven't heard of Nettles, she's a really awesome character. We'll explain her, but before we even talk about Nettles, I want to drop a little something here. So this is concerning the origin of dragons. This is from the World of Ice and Fire, and it's a great little passage. It's drawing on a lot of Sept and Barth ideas. And it's basically the maesters saying, how were they first tamed? I don't know. There's several rumors. And so it says,
right.
It was on this great peninsula across from Slaver's Bay that those who brought an end to the empire of Old Geese, though not to all of their ways, originated. Sheltered there amidst the great volcanic mountains known as the 14 Flames were the Valyrians, who learned to tame dragons and make them the most fearsome weapon of war that the world ever saw. The tales the Valyrians told of themselves claimed they were descended from dragons and were kin to the ones they now controlled. So very like the Ironborn saying they come from the sea. In such fragments of Barth's unnatural history as remain, the Septon appears to have considered, and I see a super chat there, I'll grab that in a second, several various legends examining the origins of dragons and how they came to be controlled by the Valyrians. The Valyrians themselves claim that dragons sprang forth as the children of the 14 flames, meaning that they were just hanging around the volcanoes, while in Qarth, the tale states there was once a second moon, something, something. We know that one's not true. One day this moon, yeah, something that's crazy. Dragons don't come from the moon.
What?
And then there's in Ashaya, the tales are many and confused, but certain texts, all impossibly ancient, claim that dragons first came from the shadow, and we know that that potentially is a link to the Great Empire of the Dawn. But the thing is, the Valyrians were shepherds. That's why there's a Giscari that says something about like, oh, we were old already when you guys were still fucking sheep, right? Something like that.
Right.
That's because they were shepherds. So this is interesting because, of course, Nettles uses sheep to tame her dragon. And so this may be George giving us a clue about how the Valyrians may have aided their taming of dragons. Because even with a blood link, that's not a guarantee the dragon won't eat you. So
Exactly. And there's question about why Nettles can ride Sheepstealer. Does she have dragon blood? Is it solely the sheep and something special about her? So that's awesome. I just want to say that I know I'm up here and it seems like I'm an authority figure, but I'm actually in a David Lightbringer masterclass. I'm a student. I'm here to learn. Like, I know you're about to like drop some gems and blow my mind. So sometimes I'm just going to be sitting here being like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. I just want to put that out there.
Well, Dave and Dan famously, they had to pass a test to get the show, right? George asked, so who's Jon Snow's mother? So for me to be a guest on my show, it's have you watched the Ice Spiders video? You have watched the Ice Spiders video, so you're good.
Yes.
You're an advanced student now, so at the very least.
Well, the other thing is, so my real name is Webb. My full name is Webb Sleen, but everyone has called me Webb my whole life. So spiders, internet, spider webs, I've been teased my entire life. So I have a special connection to spiders and the weirwood net and it being a web. The world.
So that was right up your alley then.
So it was, and of course it was something that I would never think of myself. It's something that you had to say and me to sit there and be like, oh my gosh. But yeah, please, if you haven't watched the video, go watch the video.
Well, I'm out here smoking tons and tons of weed to figure out the symbolism, so you don't have to. Although you can certainly try if you want to. It's fun. So I got a nice complimentary super chat here. Tranquil Ashes says, as a cosplayer and a Song of Ice and Fire fanatic, I am such a fan of you, Miss Nettles. LML, you are always a moon meteor. I'm on always a moon meteor. It looks like a typo there. Something about moon meteors and they're happy. That works for me. And Marvin the Martian says, Sheepstealer aside, if you were a dragon seed, what dragon, Song of Ice and Fire or other fantasy or your own creation would you tame? And how would you plan to do it? Well, I would definitely go the Nettles route, and we're going to talk about that. But like I said, she definitely uses sheep to become friends with the dragon, meaning food. Everyone knows that's the number one way to tame any animal is food. So
right.
I'm not one to like believe in my own invincibility like Quentin and just sort of grab a whip and go for it. I definitely would be trying to have the strategy there. But which one of the dragons? I'm kind of a Gray Ghost fan. I like the gray dragons, Gray Ghost and Sea Smoke. The idea of riding a dragon that's damn near invisible low on the horizon, like that sounds awesome to me. But what do you think, Nettles? Obviously, you're biased in the Sheepstealer direction, I'm assuming.
Well, the super chat said Sheepstealer aside, right?
Oh, I guess. Oh, yes, it
so
did.
It has to be another one. So for me, it's going to be Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. That's the dragon I would like to tame, ride, because it's so smooth. Like there's no, like when you watch the show, every time I watch Daenerys climb on Drogon, I'm like, yo, any of those spikes can go in the wrong place. As a woman, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So Toothless looks like a nice, smooth, easy ride. Not anything I'm gonna get tangled up on. And I like his powers. I like how he shoots his like sonic fire thing.
We have requests to know what you're drinking. I think it's water, isn't it?
Oh, it's not just water. Okay, we fancy up in here. It's alkaline water, which I do recommend. I don't know why it just hydrates me better, makes me feel better, cures everything. I don't know why.
I like it too. I either get the alkaline water or I get spring water. I don't like the straight purified water. Yeah. But
Those two are the only waters that are actually safe. Either something from a spring or pH balanced alkaline water. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But
yeah, Cannibal, I don't know. I don't know how anyone would ever ride the Cannibal. I think that's the whole point of the Cannibal. It's like just unrideable. Unrideable. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into Nettles and Sheepstealer. I will let you go ahead and take it away and start where you want. You said you had a couple of you got some text ready to read and stuff.
I just wanted to kind of like go over like the exact moment I became Girl Nettles. So a little history about me is, so I was late to the fandom. I started watching season 5. So I watched the whole thing and I was caught up at John's death. So it was like a year for the next thing, and I'm like still hungry. I'm like waiting. I'm like, I need something. So I read all the books. I read The World of Ice and Fire, what is it? Princess and the Queen, Rogue Prince. I read everything, Dunk and Egg. And in The World of Ice and Fire, so here I am having a good time in the fandom. Go George, you're a writer. And then, so let me just find it. Okay. I would put the bookmark in the wrong place while everyone's waiting. Okay.
I was just giving a quick shout out to Jenny of Old Stones, who
please,
channel member Squisher.
Oh my gosh. All right. I could kind of freestyle it.
I'll give you a minute here. Just go ahead and search for it. So
yes.
So the basic idea that I'm going with here is, again, the outline with Nettles is that there's a question of whether or not, because she doesn't look Valyrian, quote unquote. She doesn't have any of the Valyrian looks, but she obviously is successful in taming the dragon. She uses sheep to become friends with it, like I said, but then people are still raising the question of, is she a dragon seed? And this has just some really interesting ramifications for, again, how did the Valyrians tame dragons? And also for some of the stuff that we've been talking about with the Valyrians, but also the strong children who don't look Targaryen but can ride dragons. And kind of the overarching point is, in the end, the hair and the looks are really only an indicator of who can ride dragons. It's riding dragons that counts. So if you can ride a dragon, that essentially makes you a dragon lord. That exactly does make you a dragon lord. So you see that with the strong children. They don't look the part, and almost everyone thinks they're probably bastards, but they can ride dragons. So Jaehaerys is like, yes, my grandson, this will be your kingdom. Because of course, official paternity and stuff, that's merely a cultural convention. There's no actual difference between a quote unquote bastard and a non-bastard, as we know. And George is, causing us to think about that with Jon Snow and other characters. So Nettles is right at the junction of a lot of those ideas. And in the end, if you can ride the dragon, you can ride the dragon. And that's kind of the deal. So we see that with the Strongs, with Nettles. And I'm also curious, and let me know whenever you found your place, Nettles.
Yes.
I'm curious to see if, of course, because the Valyrians have been cast as black, I'm curious if Nettles will be linked to their family. Like, will we look at Nettles and be like, oh, that's probably a coreless bastard right there, or something like that. In the books, there's not really a hint that there's a connection to the Valyrians. This is all on Dragonstone, where they try to tame the dragons, right? Nettles is from Dragonstone, correct?
Driftmark?
Oh, is she from Driftmark?
Yes.
Oh. Well then...
Driftmark, or... I think so.
I'll just look it up real quick.
I'm actually not sure.
The chat is saying Driftmark.
Chat knows everything.
The chat is helpful. She grew up in Spicetown and Hull on the island of Driftmark. Yes. So It's yeah. So you could. I guess what I'm saying is like
Same
Driftmark.
thing.
Driftmark is not going to be a homogeneously white place. Like that's the bottom line. Like it kind of goes to what I was saying in the Valyrian video. The Valyrians are very likely to have married people that aren't from Westeros because it's a port city or a town, port town. It's not quite a city, but it's a hub of trade is the point, and the Valyrians are traders. So we're going to see people from other lands on Driftmark. That's already in the books here essentially. Like there are non-white people hanging around on Driftmark. Of course there is. So
I agree. There's a reason that George wrote this before he even got greenlit for House of the Dragon. And George himself is on the writing team. So I think this is also like a clue of what you're saying is that, yeah, there were other people around. Yeah, George focused on Stark, Targaryens, all the famous names, but there were other people around. And I found the quote.
take it away.
All right. So here I am reading, and it says, by any name, she was black haired, brown eyed. And I was like, hey, I have black hair. I have brown eyes. And but it's more than that. It's like it's just writing black hair and brown eyes. It's informing the reader that this person has had an outlook on the world that's shaped by their black hair and brown eyes. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then it says brown skinned. And that's another thing. Her skin is different than everyone else around her. And I connected to that. I read that on a different level of like I grew up in predominantly white spaces, white schools, white friends. And I'm a theater nerd, so I understand what it's like to be the only black person in a room. That's the same experience that Nettles is going through, where she's navigating the world like that. And then skinny. I was like, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I've been skinny my whole life. I'm one of those girls everyone hates because I like go to buffets, sit down and eat and eat and eat, and I just don't gain a pound. And that's another thing that informs your outlook on the world. When you're the type of person like me who can be like who's picked up and moved aside, like your size, like I said, informs your outlook on the world. And I connected with that. Foul mouth. I'm a shock jock. Being a theater major, being someone who's small, being someone who is the minority in these spaces, for me to survive, I had to be funny. I had to be the person in the class going, bitch, and like everybody laughs. Like um, doing comedy, especially being maybe it's messed up, but especially being like a middle schooler doing comedy, the more f bombs and like ludicrous stuff you could say, the better it was. The more popular, the more roles you got. Honestly, that's how it was. So I definitely specifically identify with being foul mouthed and having that be how I present myself to the world. It says that I don't give a fuck, literally, and it says that I am not going to play the game of politeness that everyone else is walking around brainwashed to play. Then it says that she's fearless, and of course, I've also identified with being fearless in a way that I was the tomboy little girl who would run at the top of a jungle gym and like jump down. I would never use the playground the correct way. I would find very dangerous things. I don't know if you guys played that game where you have the swings. People are swinging and you have to like run in between it and not get hit.
So if I could just jump in, I've got a scar here on my forehead.
Oh my gosh.
It's a pretty good one. That's first grade jungle gym metal monkey bars accident. I won't go into details, but the school nurse was leaving. The school nurse was leaving for the day, and my broken, fragmented memory of the incident was like the teachers walking me into the school, and the nurse walking down the hall about 20 feet away. She turns around and she just goes, "Oh my God!" And there's like blood all over my face and shit.
Oh my.
But
okay. So
anyways, sorry. Go ahead.
And yeah, like being fearless isn't just like the physical feats I would do. It was about being picked to sing in front of the whole class, and even though I was scared, I did it, and it catapulted my life into being in theater and singing and everything like that. So it's like sometimes as a Black person, you do have to be fearless. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to like operate in white spaces in order to find some success. And I feel like that's exactly what Nettles did. Um, and then the last thing it says, and the first and last rider of the dragon Sheepstealer. And to me, that just means that another thing that I identified with is I was obsessed with being the first one, the only one, the last one to do something, because it just made me feel like my life would matter. When you feel small, when you feel like you're invisible, nobody can see you, you start having these grand, crazy goals of I can be famous, I can be president, because that's how you heal yourself from feeling small, is going for the opposite. And we see Nettles is first and last dragon rider of Sheepstealer. She's the first brown rider. She's the first to change Damon. She's the last, like she's the first and last in so many respects. And so reading that little paragraph, I hope I know it was long winded, but I hope I was able to put you guys in my head so that you could feel this visceral reaction of going do 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 and go, oh my god, George just described me. And being a nerd, it's being a woman, a black woman nerd. I'm sure you can understand that it's very rare to find a piece of literature like that where you're like, yes, 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 yes. So it's not just one character. It's in a novel. It's so much to me. This informs how I navigate my life and how I found success living in a white world.
Well, that's really cool. And with with the question of representation, it's like some people look at it in an overly simplistic way because, of course, when you watch a movie or read a book, you can relate to all kinds of characters. It's not that you can only relate to people that are your
Right.
age, gender, race, occupation, etc. However, it is sometimes nice when you find a character that does do a couple of things that are just like what you do or have the same perspective. It does hit different. And everyone has their characters in the book that they identify with. Like for me, I'm somebody that it just likes to think about stuff. If I didn't have a body and I was a floating consciousness, that would be okay for like 90% of the time for me. So I relate to Archmaester Marwyn. He's this cantankerous, apostate guy. He's in the Citadel because he loves learning, but he's opinionated and he doesn't go along with the gray sheep. Like, I relate to that. I relate to Rhaegar because Rhaegar's trying to figure out prophecy, doing his best. He doesn't know, but he's got to go with his best answer, and he doesn't get it right. And like, I relate to that. Trying to figure.
And he plays stringed instruments.
Well, there's that too. But so he needs to grow the beard. That's my one problem with the Rhaegar cosplay is I always have to trim my beard down so it's not so dark. It looks weird with the wig, and it's tough. I wish. I'm really the only Targaryen I should really be cosplaying is like Baelor Breakspear, but he's not been on any shows yet, so it's not. No one cares. But
Yeah, right.
I'm hoping maybe if I grew my hair longer, maybe I could do like a Kristen Cole thing. I'm definitely glad to see some like Mediterranean representation. I don't know what the guy's ethnicity is, but he looks kind of Italian or Spanish or something. And then there's always a chance we could get a Baratheon that looks like me, but it's tough. There's no perfect Dave cosplays really yet, so
I guess any Stark.
Yeah, kind like Annie's so generic, And
any Stark, Benjen, whatever.
I don't really have Stark vibes. I feel like so.
I know you don't. That's why it's like, well, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And I'm glad you said that. It's not always like representation is not always about like someone has to be exactly like you. For me, it's always like I identify with people who are the opposite, and that's why I love these stories because, like, talking about the main story, like people like Tyrion, like this is gonna sound bad, but like little people is like a demographic that I just never thought about. I didn't have to. And reading the main story, and sometimes reading Tyrion is like reading thoughts that are in my brain. And now to see someone who's the opposite of me, someone that I didn't even know, existed, kind of, to find so much commonality. I think sometimes that's better when the person isn't your exact skin tone and your exact everything, but they're different than you, and it's the same. It just kind of shows you that race is made up and we're all the same.
So that's how I feel about Daenerys. I am definitely not a 14-year-old dragon princess. But
are you sure?
I'm sure. I've looked deep in my heart of hearts, and I am not. I call myself a princess sometimes because I'm a little picky and persnickety and stuff. But I'm not a real princess. But Dany tries to make the world better every time she has a chance to, in a way that I resonate with so strongly. And that's why I feel Dany so strongly. And I think if you watched my Who's the Real Dany video, that's the main thing I focused on, was just her moral compass and her willingness to throw herself into the breach and just caring so much about stuff. Like, that's the thing that connects me to her, even though she's so different. So
yeah, people like to say, oh, Dany, she's nothing without her dragons. Everything she's done is because of her dragons. And it's like, excuse me, the first book, she gets her dragons on the last page, okay? So the first book, she's compassionate. She's putting herself out there. She's fearless. She's doing all these things without dragons. Like, that just already shows you who she is. But yeah, I've been fighting people for Dany for years in the fandom. So I got all the smoke.
I'm just making a little princess crown out of Minty's comment here.
Yay!
So, real quick, I got a super chat from Melissa Moore. I lost it in the feed, so I can't put it up on the screen.
Oh, but no.
She asked, what book has the Summerhall story in it? And I think the answer is that it's scattered. There's not one place. I mean, the World of Ice and Fire has the best single recounting of it, but you don't get much there. You just get the setup. We don't know what actually happened. It tells you, like, Aegon gathered there, and he had the 7 eggs, and blah, blah, blah. And then as to the what happened, it's these little lines that are spread all throughout the book. So people just refer to it. It's, like, so horrible, people don't really want to talk about it. They're like, oh, yeah, and Summerhall, everyone knows that. It was horrible. Oh, yeah, Summerhall. So, mum's the word for now. But Aegon was trying to hatch dragons, is the point. He was trying to hatch dragons. Wildfire was involved. Perhaps there was a darker plot line where he was trying to sacrifice Targaryen children like Rhaegar in order to wake a dragon. That's an idea that's out there. So we don't know. Egg may have gotten to some dark places. There are clues in the Dunk and Egg trilogy that Egg has a rageful streak and a desire to basically just get his way no matter what. And that's why he wants dragons. He wants them so that he can enact reforms, which the High Lords don't want. And most of those reforms are good. However, how far did he go in that quest to hatch dragon eggs? We'll have to find out at some point. But that's the story of Summerhall.
Yeah, I feel bad. I feel so bad for Egg because I could see him. He's probably sitting there like, well, I could just gather these lords and have them beheaded. Like he didn't really need dragons. He had armies, but I feel like he felt that if he had dragons, he wouldn't have to hurt anybody. Just having the dragon there would be like that bodyguard that's like, yeah, you better, you know what I mean? The guy that roughs you up, but he didn't have to hurt anybody. So,
well, I've got oh, sorry, were you done?
No, I was done.
Okay, so I've got my next 2 videos are going to be Maester Conspiracy, Anti-Dragon Maester Conspiracy, and we're going to. It's an old idea in the fandom. It's implied by Archmaester Marwyn and Barbary Dustin both in the main series, and then Fire and Blood potentially has all the clues to this conspiracy. So I've been studying and putting it together. The more I look into it, the more damnable it looks. And one of the things that you end up thinking about pretty quick is like, well, do we even blame the Maesters for trying to get rid of the dragons? Like, if I asked the question in the video, if we all lived in a medieval world and God was asking you, do you want dragons to exist? The catch is that only a few people can control them and you don't get to decide who those people are. So would you want dragons to exist in the world and then just roll the dice and see who gets them? And are they a good person? Like, probably not. Right?
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty messed up. I would say the heck yeah. I would still want them.
Okay,
because
so
I would just kill all the bad people.
Well, then it's so if you get the dragon, that's great. But the question is, like, if you don't get the dragons, You only get to decide if they exist or not. So now we're all basically at the mercy of the character of who possesses the dragons. And I think this is a question that George is posing to the reader throughout the whole story. It's all about power and the use of power. So it's like, should anybody have the nuclear trump card that no one else has, you know? So it's Dany's dealing with that. All the Targaryens are dealing with that. And I think that is where it comes down to with the Maester conspiracy, is like they're trying to get rid of magic and stuff that's unpredictable and create a world that is more stable and safe. And you kind of can't blame them. I mean, you don't have to agree with them, at least, to see their point. Like, you can understand why some people would end up trying to do that. So.
Yeah, you sound like a gray rat and a traitor. Okay. But I guess it's actually moral to get rid of the dragons, but F morality.
I guess the point is just to be able to see both sides of it, right? Or even not even to say that, just to say that in a world where dragons were real, there would be forces that are like, these shouldn't exist. We should get rid of all of them. There definitely would be that force, and the Maesters make sense as that kind of power, since they are pro science, such as it is.
Yeah. How can Maesters control the world if dragons exist?
There you go. I just got a downvote just now. I think a pro Targaryen just downvoted me. That's okay. I deserve that. I'll take it. So let me see. No, it shows me the live upvotes and downvotes on the right side. Wow. So yeah, I always get like 2 downvotes from my normal haters. There's always like 2, but I saw sometimes I see the downvote come up right when I say something specific, and I'm like, oh, okay, somebody didn't like that, and I always chuckle.
I told you.
Yeah, I deserve that. So, do you have the Nettles passage pulled up? Do you want to read it, or shall I pull it up? I would like to read it.
You read it.
Okay. Well, give me just a second, and I will pull that. And go give me some more on Nettles while I pull this up.
All right.
For the people. Of course.
So the other thing that I think is interesting about Nettles is at the Battle of the Gullet, just it kind of just shows you, I think so the Battle of the Gullet, that's the one where Jace sends his 2 younger brothers. His plan is to send them off to Pento, so they can just kind of like hide out there in peace, and they're on ships about to go. But of course, people from the three sisters, the 3 daughters. I'm not sure whether it's
3 sisters.
Yeah, 3 sisters. I'm not sure which one, but so they're coming in at the same time to help out, and of course they run into each other. So I think 5 dragons take the air, and it's like one of the first. Well, it's one of the bigger like dragon battles, and so you have where all the dragon seeds take part in it, and you see how Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the Sot, they're like, oh yeah, that was great, we won, flew a dragon, did this, did that, and they're like celebrating, they're drinking, and then you see Nettles and Adam. They're like, her face is black with stuff, streaked with tears, and she's like, I'm not having that. And after that, she doesn't fight anymore. She kind of hangs out, but she doesn't fight anymore. And you can kind of see the toll of it. And I think that's George showing us the lesson he's always trying to teach us, which is war is bad. But even when they're fighting to save 2 little boys, when it's just, it's still crazy. So every time Nettles, I feel like appears, it's something super important. They don't mention her a lot, but every time it's like something like this.
So real quick, you do have a YouTube page, correct?
I do.
You just got a couple of videos, but one of them is very funny. It's the drunk A Song of Ice and Fire King List recitation. What is your channel?
It's GirlNettles.
Okay. I'll pop it up real quick.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, check out my channel. I did have a challenge back when people cared about hashtags, and challenges were for A Song of Ice and Fire, where I am challenging everyone watching to please try it, where you drink a certain amount. It's up to you. You know what your limits are. You know, if you could drink a whole four local or one shot, whatever it is, drink on camera and then recite all the kings from Aegon the Conqueror to Robert. And just a challenge to see, because some of y'all call yourselves nerds, some of y'all call yourselves A Song of Ice and Fire fans. Well, I want you to prove it to me. Yes.
That's the first place I saw you, and I was definitely impressed. So check that out, guys. It's funny. And you've got a bit of a fan here in the chat, John Lassane, trying to get your attention for a minute. Now, I would like to ask you a question.
Oh,
Do you think the new spinoff will live up to the hype created by the original?
hi, John. So John is actually my best friend,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay. All right. That's more funny
he's
then.
yeah, he's a producer. He's in the industry. We lived When I lived in LA. Like, oh my god, he's awesome. But to
Well, shout out to John then.
thanks, John. Will it live up to the hype? That's like telling the future. All I can say is all the tools are in place for it to be a success, meaning they have money, they have viewers, um, they have George, and the text is fully written from start to finish. Dance of the Dragons, we know exactly what happens. So they have all the tools. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, I've said it a couple times. I really think it's better suited. The thing that was challenging, not that Dave and Dan, obviously, it's different showrunners, but you could see the TV format didn't know what to do with the White Walkers and the Weirwood Net and stuff. And when George writes those passages, he drops into some really psychedelic prose where it's very dreamlike, and it'd be hard to portray. Dave and Dan definitely struggled with it. But we saw that all the court politics and intrigue stuff that worked really well. It was basically like, think about the first 4 or 5 seasons of Game of Thrones. Four, we'll say four. Kind of like a period drama with a little bit of magic. That worked really well. And House of the Dragon is right in that wheelhouse. We don't even have to worry about the White Walkers. It's all period drama style intrigue and politics. There's a lot of really strong characters. And there's tons of dragons. So instead of just a couple and one dragon fight in the dark where you can't see anything,
Oh God.
we're gonna get lots of dragon fights. So yeah, it's definitely. I think it's set up well. It looks great. My optimism slowly built up. I went from like, I'll watch it, we'll see, to like, hey, this might be pretty good actually. And then what was it for me was like, when the new photos came out, it caused me to go back into Fire and Blood and read it slowly and tease out the individual events. And then I was like, oh, there's actually a lot here. This could be really good. And then the more we've seen of it, it really looks like it's going to be awesome. So let me go get Cleo. Can you give me like 60 seconds here on something?
All right.
Cheers.
No, I don't know. I can't see the chat, so I can't talk to you guys. Well, maybe I can. Let me go on and see. How am I doing? This is my first time live streaming or doing like anything like this, so I'm like freaking out, guys. I'm freaking out. It's like the teacher coming up. Oh my god, or the student coming up, and I mean, I was just in the chat with y'all yesterday, so I'm here now. So I guess I'll play with the chat. Okay, let's play Kill, Marry, Shag. So I'm going to do Kill, Marry, Shag. If you guys don't know how to play, I list 3 people, and you say which one you're going to kill, which one you would shag, and which one you would marry. Okay, and I want to know why these are your choices. And we'll do House of the Dragon characters. Okay, first let's do the girls. Kill, Marry, Shag. Rhaenyra, of course. Kill, Marry, Shag. Rhaenyra, Alicent, and Misery. Misery, the White Worm. So out of those 3, Kill, Marry, Shag, and then we'll do one for the ladies. So it'll be men. Kill, Marry, Shag. Breakbones, Harwin Strong, Kristen Cole, and Big Daddy Damon. I was just playing Kill Mary Shag.
No, I heard everything. I was like, okay, this got interesting real quick. So the three women were Rhaenyra, Alicent, and who? Mysaria.
Misery.
Okay. And the three men were Daemon, Kristen, and who?
Breakbones.
Okay.
I want to hear your answers too.
Yeah, I'll answer both. These are good questions. So I think Shag is Mysaria, right? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, one and done.
I'm not trying to kill her, and I'm not marrying her. I think. You know, if you marry Rhaenyra early enough, that's the right call.
Because really, you want to end up like Laenor?
Well, I'm not going to end up like Laenor because I'm not bringing I'm bringing a little more to the table than Laenor is in Rhaenyra's interest. So, but I mean, yeah, no, I think if you marry Rhaenyra when she's young, that's the right call. I'm really Alicent, to be in all seriousness. I'm very curious to see if Alicent is being twisted by her father to play the game of manipulating Viserys, and she actually loves Viserys, or if she's being forced by her father to marry Viserys when she doesn't love him at all. I think it's one of those two scenarios, and I don't know which. And that has a big difference as far as how we see Alicent. And I think they're going to go with the first option so that she's more sympathetic. It's her father that's pushing her into it, and she's like, doesn't know, but she seems kind of like a Marjorie character, potentially. It's just a matter of like, is there real love between her and Viserys, or is it all political motivation? So you have to be nervous about.
To fight.
What's that?
We're about to fight. Like, I'm seething right now. I'm like,
oh,
because Alicent is not sympathetic.
No,
she's the one pulling the strings. She's been doing this since she was 14 years old, where she was doing it with the old King Jaehaerys. Come on.
Okay.
Maybe it started off with her father because he brought her to court, and he knew why he brought her to court, to get married. But I also feel like, yeah, she's like the Marjorie character in that she wants to be the queen, right? And I feel like she buttered up Jaehaerys. I feel like she slept with Jaehaerys. And then she's
so you believe Mushroom's vile calumny that they were doing more than reading, eh?
Oh, yeah, because it says that she fed him and bathed him as if he didn't have servants. Come on now. The king doesn't have servants to bathe him. It has to be Alicent. It has to a highborn Hightower is out here bathing old men.
Now, I will point out that Jaehaerys was anti-Paramour early in his life. When he went to Old Town during one of the estrangements, there were women throwing themselves at him, and one sat on his lap, and he was like, I have a wife, I don't need a paramour. Now, maybe he's just saying that because they're in public, and that's not the real Jay or whatever, but I just point that out.
Yeah, but Alicent's dead.
So you're looking at Alicent, and you're like, hiss, snake. Yeah. All right, well, I was going to choose marry Rhaenyra and kill Alicent, which I think is, which is, like I said, but you want to marry Rhaenyra when she's young before all that fucked up shit happened to her. And then it's, Breakbones, by the way, is Harwin Strong. So if we're talking about Daemon, Harwin, and Kristen Cole, you kill Kristen Cole. That's the only thing you can do with Kristen Cole is kill him. He's nothing but trouble. He's going to be the best character on the show, I have a feel like. He's absolutely going to steal every scene, but you want to kill him. He wants to kill you, so that works. Daemon
do you see Kristen Cole as like a Jaime character or like a Hound character?
Oh, I think he is a little... That's actually probably right in the intersection of those two, because he has some of the rage that the Hound has, but he's like an angry Barristan almost, because he's got that incel thing going on. And he's got this very false virtue, hollow virtue thing that turns into rage. So it's kind of like Barristan doesn't have the rage. But I see Daemon as more Jaime. Like, I feel like if Jaime had grown up and not had a redemption arc, he becomes Daemon. So.
Wow.
So
Daemon doesn't have a redemption arc with Nettles?
I think Daemon is just a little bit of both. I don't think he ever really gets worse or better. I think he's always capable of dark stuff, but he's also passionate and capable of love as well. But I don't see him as being redeemed, no.
Okay, so killing...
Because he's kind of fucking off from the war here. He's supposed to be fighting a war, and he's like just doing his own thing.
What if he's fighting the war and he's like, oh my gosh, Rhaenyra shouldn't be queen. What am I doing? He's like, maybe he burns one too many people at Harrenhal, and he's like, what am I doing?
Now, that would be an interesting parallel, of course, to Jaime and Cersei. And I think Rhaenyra and Daemon have a lot of Jaime and Cersei parallels. So that would make sense, actually. If they went that direction, I could totally see that. That could explain why he sort of fucked off to the mountains with Nettles instead of, like,
Wow.
So I think you marry Harwyn, and you fuck Daemon and kill Kristen Cole. So, what does the chat think? Yeah. What's your answer?
Same for the women. Alicent dies a slow death. No, actually, no, yeah. I kill Alicent. Alicent dies a very slow death. Like, basically what's happening with in the show, what the Mountain does to Septa Unella, what he's doing to her, that's what's in my mind. That's Alicent there. Then you marry Rhaenyra, and then quick shag with the White Worm. And the men, you marry Daemon. Daemon, I love Daemon. George has a reoccurring thing about second sons. And certainly. Daemon is a second son. And a lot of times George makes the second son the leader, the ruler, all the good qualities. When you look at Ned, when you look at Tommen, when you look at and then Daemon, like if you compare like those three, especially like Ned and Tommen, like because they're second sons, they don't grow up wanting to rule or being prepared. Like they're just kind of like doing their own thing, and then it's like thrust into their hands for them to be the leader, and then they kind of fail.
Yeah, Ned is the trademark one for that. But yes, it's a huge theme. Tyrion is a second son as well.
Tyrion
and the firstborn sons get the Theon treatment or the Robb Stark treatment. I've often said that George hated quarterbacks in high school. He hates the good-looking jock, firstborn, cocky quarterback type. Like that's Theon to a T. And he's just like, we'll take fingers, nose, balls, your head, whatever. Like we're gonna knock you down a few pegs, So,
but Daemon is the second son, but he is the jock. He's the everything. He has dark sister. So no, I think he should have been king. He would have made a better ruler. Love Daemon. So marry him, and then I guess kill Kristen Cole and shag Breakbones. Yeah.
Killing Kristen Cole is going to be hard, by the way. Let's not short sell that. I really do think he's going to be friggin' an awesome character. What?
Yeah. No, I was pointing to Baby Sheepstealer. Like it won't be hard for me to kill Kristen Cole. Just saying.
That's a good way to do it. Yeah. No, I loved everything I've seen from Kristen in the trailer. Just drips the character. Like there's the one scene on Dragonstone where you see Otto, and he's flanked by the two Kingsguard, one of which is Kristen. And Kristen's got this ultra cocky ass stance. His head is tilted. His hands are on his waist. Like he's just like, give me one excuse to pull this sword out, bitch. Like,
oh my gosh.
And then the other one is like when you say, hey, hang on, come here, step up. It's spring, so the birds are little.
Oh, is it time to get busy for them?
They're looking for things that aren't here. That's right. So aren't available to them. And then the scene where obviously Kristen Cole is administering a beatdown to somebody, and you could just see like the rage. I really think they've cast this one well.
Yep, that's when he was fighting in a blind rage at Rhaenyra and Laenor's wedding when he kills Laenor's paramour.
You think that's what that was?
Probably.
Yeah, it didn't look like a tourney scene though. It looked like they were in a castle somewhere, so that's why I wasn't sure.
Oh, then I don't know.
But They weren't outside, I'll say that. There's a crowd of people around. It could have been at a feast or a dinner. And this is the kind of thing where, like, you know, he beats the hell out of Joffrey. Is it Lonmouth or I forget. There's a couple of Joffreys.
Yeah, Joffrey. It's Laenor's paramour at the wedding.
In the book, he beats him on the tourney ground during the melee, but they might change that. You know what I mean? Like,
or if you're saying it's in the castle, then it must be Beesbury. When he like cuts off his head, when Beesbury is like, "Excuse me, Rhaenyra is actually the queen," and then he's like.
Oh my god, dude, that was the best Beesbury voice. I was not expecting that.
Yeah. And it must be that one. That scene.
Well, but do you need to beat an old man that violently? Like that? No. I don't know. Does he get into a fight with Daemon? Like maybe when Daemon's caught in bed with Rhaenyra, maybe Kristen fucks him up a little bit. But that's a mailed fist and there's a bunch of blood on it. So it looked like he was beating someone to death right there, not just like, hey, how are you doing?
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure they're going to add a lot of scenes that aren't in here because even though this is massive, it's still a skeleton.
Right. And any one detail can be changed. So Beesbury gets his throat cut, but maybe they just like, let's just have Kristen Cole pound his face in instead. Like, who knows? So we'll just have to see. Yeah, so that's and while we're just freelancing here, so what are some of the top line things that you're the most excited to see, specifically like in season 1?
Season 1, I mean, I'm just excited to see like these characters come to life. Like I want to see like who, because you're reading this and you're like, who is good, who is bad, because everybody is gray in this story. Like even Alicent, like I'm only half kidding about it, like. She's my villain, but obviously she has a point too. She's just defending her family and her kids. Same thing with like Rhaenyra. So I'm excited about seeing like, okay, who's the villain and who's the hero? Who's funny? Who's wanton? Who's like I want to see these characters on the page become people, like exactly like the show, Game of Thrones show. Think what you want about it, but those were fully fledged characters. Where you knew you could predict what they were going to do because you've seen countless examples of how they navigate life. So that's the first thing. Like I need to see. I need to see if I was right for idolizing Daemon. I need to know that, and then the dragons.
You weren't. No, that's very wrong. But it's a good kind of wrong. It feels right, even though it's wrong. So it's okay.
We'll see, man. We'll see. In my story, Daemon did all the right things. Where would you be without the gold cloaks? Where would you be without the gold cloaks?
Okay. Well, I mean, the gold cloaks are mostly kind of bitches in the main story. They're kind of inconvenient, but no, you do need them. It's true. It's kind of that thing. But so something you said here that sparked my interest. Yes, the character. So on Game of Thrones, I feel like the casting and the acting were two of the best things all the way through.
Ever.
There are some complaints to be with how D&D handled character consistency over multiple seasons. Sometimes it felt like Jaime and Cersei of one season are doing things that they wouldn't have done on a previous season or whatever. However, that's the first thing I valued as someone who read the books first, is like, I've got all these characters in my head, but then once you see, like, yeah, I mean, Ned will always be Sean Bean, right? Is that
exactly
right? So like that's cool to me to have the images and stuff, and I really appreciate when they bring things to life. Like even in the later seasons, some of the scenes were hit and miss, but like the attack at Hardhome, it brought to life what it would be like to be attacked by whites in a way that the book can't, and I value that because we can always go back to that episode, even though it's not canonical. It basically is what it would be like at the Fist of the First Men. The terror, the dread, they keep coming. Now your friends are coming at you. Like they really got that. So that to me was invaluable as far as living in the world and experiencing it. So I do expect a lot more of that. And the other thing that you said that's really at the crux of this is like Fire and Blood is told by the Maesters. It is a biased account of history. It is what they want us to know. They have this really nice system set up where most of it comes from the Maesters, And then they can draw from these other sources when they want to throw other ideas in. And they can also cast aspersions on those other ideas because, oh, it came from Mushroom, or, oh, this is a secondhand, son of a lord who 30 years later said this. So they can plant ideas in there and throw aspersions on them so that the first place you get an idea is that, but that's not true, when that actually may be the truth. So the show is going to have a lot of liberty as far as which version of the truth for any given event that they want to portray. And if they're very skillful, they'll portray some of the events in a way that we'll understand how different people came away with different ideas about the event. So that's going to be really fun for the showrunners to work with, because none of it...
Could you imagine being a writer on this show?
My brain...
It'd
be great. It's a great project.
There's so much to work with. Like, even if all you were responsible was for one character, like you just mentioned Hardhome, that was the first episode I ever cared about the wildlings. I never liked Ygritte. I didn't give a fuck about Gilly. Never. It was Hardhome, and it was because that one woman they showed, how, like, she was kind of, like, tough, and, like, I don't know, seeing their faces, giving them a funny moment, a sad moment, something just like that just makes them so much human. And I was like, what the F? So...
They nailed that. Yeah, they really did a good job. Those moments where they're all debating about what to do, and you're like, whoa, that's real freedom. Like, these are people with their lives on the line, everything on the line, and they're debating about what to do. They know they have to agree and go with one plan, if possible. And, like, some people want to take their ball and go home. And, yeah, that was really well done. So
even the fan got a quick 15-minute character arc, where first he hated Jon, and then he kind of pretty much died for Jon. Like, yeah.
There was some good
close. Out in 15 minutes.
There was some good condensed writing there for sure, yeah. And that's what George excels at. So
we'll see. The only thing I'm excited for everything. I'm the type of person that I keep my expectations low so that I'll be happy. The only thing I just hope is that they take from Game of Thrones is that I do want them to push the envelope. I do want to see how far they could go. I just hope they don't hold back in some things. I
don't think they can.
Okay.
There's so much horrible stuff. They might change any one thing, but you can't sanitize this story. You don't pick this story if you want a sanitized thing, I don't think. I expect it to be harder to watch at times. Even than Well, actually, I take that back, because Game of Thrones veered off into violence porn on occasion, like at the Red Wedding, where they're like, let's throw in an extra pregnancy stabbing, and Theon's fucking, here I come to cut off your dick with the knife. I'm getting closer with the knife. Ha ha! It's like, we won't see that kind of shit, but blood and cheese will probably happen. So
yeah, because the low points make the high points that much higher. That's why I'm like, keep it all in there. Go even think of other things, like go the distance. Like that's my only request.
He's going the distance. I'm sorry. I've listened to a bunch of Cake lately. I love Cake. So, Monica Lewis with a PayPal. By the way, if you want to support the program, there's a link below. PayPal.me, Mythical Astronomy. That's the best way to support me. I appreciate that. You can ask a question in the notes field. Monica did not ask a question, but she did send me a PayPal, so I wanted to thank her. But
thanks, Monica.
Thanks, Monica. And okay, so other things that I am looking forward to along those lines is, like you said, seeing how they roll with the truth of some of these events. I'm very curious specifically how they the Maesters paint almost everybody in a very negative light. The Greens get bad treatment. Rhaenyra gets bad treatment.
They love Alicent. They love the Hightowers.
I mean, do they though?
They're not painted in a bad light, but it makes sense because Old Town.
Is that just me? Is that just me sort of seeing through the story to the fact that the Greens were wrong? And me making them, because in my mind they're clearly the bad guys.
But when you read it, when they write about what Alicent or Otto does, it's always like reactionary. It's like, oh, they had to do this because Rhaenyra did that, or this happened. Like it's
true.
Never like that when they write about Rhaenyra, they're literally like the vile slut gave birth on Dragonstone. Like it's clearly biased to favor the Hightowers.
I'll have to look for that. I'm doing a reread for the Maester Conspiracy right now, and I haven't even gotten to the dance. I'm just on the events before the dance right now. I was looking at the Great Council, Aemon's death, Baelin's death, and I'm just like, oh, foul play, foul play, foul play. So yeah, I've got to get there. I've got basically part one of this video series is going to outline the broad conspiracy. It's going to give you the Marwyn quote and stuff. And then part two is going to go through the events leading up to the dance and the dance. So by the time I'm done with that, I'm sure I'll have seen what you're talking about. But yeah, I guess when you, it probably is my personal take, I guess, making the Greens the bad guys, because I feel like obviously I'm biased to think that the male only precedent is bullshit, as I hope everyone is, because obviously women are just as qualified to be rulers as men. So when we read the story, we're supposed to read that as like, okay, this is a dumb rule that they have. So when Rhaenyra is named the heir and the king insists for 20 fucking years that yes, this is the heir and he never changes, very clearly the Greens were wrong and pulled a usurpation. So I don't, that kind of makes them the bad guy from the start, because when you start a war for your own personal desires, like that's the worst thing you can do in A Song of Ice and Fire. That's the playing the Game of Thrones, the High Lords playing the games and making the people suffer. That's the cardinal sin of the story. And in the end, everybody kind of does that. Like you can pin blame on all of these High Lords for playing the game. But to me, it's pretty clear that the Greens are start this thing off with a illegal usurpation right off the bat. And obviously Viserys created a muddy situation by marrying Alicent and then having a bunch of sons and then not marrying Rhaenyra to Aegon, which would have been the obvious fix, right?
Alicent wasn't going to go for that.
Well,
by that time, yeah.
They could have strong-armed her into it, but yeah, obviously they were against it. And the kids didn't like each other, and obviously I'm not in favor of making people marry when they don't want to, but within the context of maintaining the power and not having a civil war, marrying Rhaenyra and Aegon was the only choice. Otherwise,
yeah, but you would have to. That's hindsight 2020. Viserys had no idea that all this was going to happen. He thought that I made a law. The lords came and swore everything's good. Like,
well, he was definitely sleeping on those high towers then. That's for fucking sure, huh?
Yeah, I also see him as kind of like naive too, because every time he says like, "Oh, don't call my grandson Strongs," and so do you think he actually believed that?
That is a good question. That is a damn good question.
Because if he believes it, he's stupid, right?
Right.
That must mean that says something about his character, that anybody can pull the wool over his eyes. Alicent's pulling the strings. Like he doesn't make any decision on his own. It's always a maester that tells him to do it first. That's what that tells me. Or it tells me that he knows the truth, but he's one of those like Iron Fist rulers who's like, even though everyone can tell the truth, what I say is right, is what, you know what I mean?
Minty's asking about the timing of Rhaenyra and Laenor's marriage. No, before that, people brought up the idea of marrying Aegon to Rhaenyra.
Oh, yeah.
And they rejected it because they didn't like each other, and because, like you said, I think Alicent somebody was against it, but that would have been the political move to make, for sure. It's just like there was a problem, like once when Rhaenyra was the only heir, Viserys was able to get everyone on board because people liked Rhaenyra, people liked Viserys. They wanted a continuation of power, and there was no.
And she had made a progress as the realm's delight, so people saw her and knew her.
Right,
and she had a great reputation.
So they felt comfortable with it. But once he had all these male heirs from a different woman, that just really clouds the issue. It's almost like, why did you even marry Alicent and have kids if you wanted Rhaenyra to be the heir? Daemon was a backup heir. So they didn't really need a backup. So that whole enterprise of marrying Alicent and having a second family was one of the big mistakes, really, that set up this whole thing, right?
Yeah, but I think he was still in his 20s when Aemma died. So it's like, hey, you know, he's got to have something to warm his bed, you know.
Yeah, well, just the official marriage is creates because it's just such an obvious thing. Anytime there's multiple claimants to the throne, like that's a recipe for
This is
disaster.
what happens.
And that's why Catelyn was on top of that with Jon Snow. She's like, don't legitimize him because it'll end up being a struggle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So does that answer the question? Was he just naive then?
Well,
You have to be naive.
he was definitely naive, but was he that naive? It could be one of those gray areas where you kind of know something, but you don't want, like when your mom knows you're smoking weed, but she doesn't want to ask you about it. She doesn't want to see it, so she just doesn't. Or whatever. Or you're having sex, and your parents want to pretend that you're not, so they don't ask, but they kind of know.
Yeah.
It could be something like that.
I could see that with the bastards, but
right,
like you're saying, even earlier on, like to know that, like, okay, I have all these sons now, like the fact that he never saw this coming, it is a little bit questionable. I go back and forth. I haven't made up my mind about like what he knew or didn't know.
And it could be that he didn't care because they rode dragons. Like after I don't remember when. They're pretty young when they. What's that?
It's still his bloodline.
Right. It's still his bloodline, and they're dragon riders, so maybe that's what mattered to him. Yeah. Hard to say.
Yeah.
Mike Hall's like, how do you know my mom? LML. Yeah, no, I think that all of us that grew up in the 80s kind of had a similar stitch there. Parents know a little more now, but back in the 80s, it was totally the day of like parents pretending that shit wasn't happening.
It's either that or talk to your kids. I'm like, no. Can't talk to your kids. Woo. Like.
All right, so let me just. Yeah, so okay, here's one by Tony. So what probably the most disturbing thing about Daemon is the Rhaenyra grooming situation, and so Tony is commenting that he hopes that it is a rumor that Mushroom is exaggerating, that it's not quite as creepy as it seems. So that'll definitely be one thing to see. It'd be interesting to see how they play that out. Were you gonna pipe up on that one?
No, I just said allegedly. Yeah, well,
right. Everything's allegedly. That's the thing, right?
We'll see. If they do choose to keep it in there, it's going to be something telling about Daemon's character or something telling about Rhaenyra's character. So I think it'll be done right and it'll have a purpose to show that either that like Rhaenyra is easily manipulated and she's boy crazy, or Daemon's evil and he's the bad guy that's orchestrating this. I mean, honestly, the whole dance, if you have to pick one person whose fault it is, it's Daemon. Because the whole realm was so scared of Rhaenyra taking the throne with Daemon as her husband that all this happened. If Rhaenyra was still married to Laenor when it was time to take her throne, I don't know if all of this would have happened. So like I was saying, like if you could pinpoint one person, I would say that it was Daemon. What was I saying?
Well, so with the grooming, okay, so
the grooming.
They've cast two different Rhaenyras, and young Rhaenyra, obviously it's a case where the actress is probably like 18 or 19, but she's going to be playing a 15-year-old or something.
She looks young.
She does look young, and that's what they usually do is they like that show Sex Ed. The lead actor, the daughter of Scully. If you haven't seen Sex Ed, Scully from X-Files is a sex ed therapist in England, and it's very hilarious. But her son and her are the main characters. Her son, the actor's like 20, but he looks 15. So they cast him as a high schooler. That's what they do. So in any case, Rhaenyra looks... She's going to be playing a few different ages probably, because they're going to be skipping through a couple different years at a time. So in one scene, they'll try to make her look 14, and another scene, she might be 19. But the point is, Daemon's going to be 30-something. She's going to be a teenager. It will definitely look kind of creepy. The young actress is 22. See, there you go. She's 22, but they can make her look 16 pretty clearly. Gillian Anderson, thank you. I'm so bad with names. Gillian Anderson is Scully from X-Files, yes. So it will be somewhat creepy if to the extent that it happens. Now, the Targaryens, of course, have different culture around stuff. That's not to say that anything's okay. Obviously, it's still going to feel creepy, but it's like normally an uncle seducing a niece, there's like two problems. There's the age problem, and then there's the fact that it's the uncle who's exploiting a family.
The power play.
Right. So most of that will still be there, but at the same time, it'll be like, oh, these Targaryens are all fucked up anyway. They fuck each other's sisters and uncles and cousins and shit. So I'm not sure how it'll go down, but it'll probably be one of those things that makes the Targaryens feel a little different than normal people. But we just don't know because everything in Fire and Blood is hearsay. So it could be completely on the up and up. I doubt it, but you never know. So
no, there's something to it. Just with everyone is obsessed with Rhaenyra's sex life. There has to be something to it. Every chapter they had, like, even when it's kind of funny. Even when Aemon finds out that Viserys dies, he was like, do we have to kiss the old horse, the old horse Cunny? Like things like that. Like there's something to it. There's something to it. That's what I've got to say about the Rhaenyra situation. But it could be nuanced. Like who knows? They could show you that Rhaenyra is the strong woman and she's the one that takes control with the Daemon thing. Like you don't know. Like
because we see that Dany is 15 and 16 when she begins taking power in her relationships. She flips the power a little bit with the Drogo relationship. Cleo, stop, girl.
It's basically a miracle that she's able to do that.
And then by the time it comes to Dario, she's absolutely the power player. So yeah, circumstances, when you're queen, when you have a dragon, these are things that can make you feel a little more powerful, obviously. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. A bit
more consensual too, maybe. Not by today's standards, but we'll see.
And Daemon and Rhaenyra ultimately marry. So it might be somewhat predatory and creepy, but not to the point where Rhaenyra feels bad about it, obviously. And we're supposed to think that there's a romance that's developing between them for a long time, kind of low key. So I expected
to. I read it like true love, like they were meant to be together, and it was like a good, healthy relationship. And then everyone separated them. Viserys literally banished Daemon.
Maybe that's it. Maybe there's just people that were in love that there was an age gap, and that's really all there was to it, and everyone tried to separate them. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah. But then on rereads, I'm like, no, just because of how it is in the end, or maybe Rhaenyra just changes. But yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, let me shout out Marley. She gave a really nice super chat here.
Yay, Marley! I know Marley.
Well known as Song of Ice and Fire superfan Marley blessing us in the chat. Thank you very much. Yeah, Daemon. Thank you, Isabel. One of my favorite details. Daemon buys Rhaenyra. It brings her anyway a tiara of the Empress of Lang. They better include that motherfucker on the show. I want to see that.
Yeah. I wonder how much they'll show of Daemon, like on the stepstones, and because that's where he would have gotten that tiara, probably looting it off someone else.
I think, and I only speak very vaguely about leaks and stuff because they're not worth much, but there definitely is some kind of sea battle action in season 1, and it's not going to be the Battle of the Gullet yet. So almost certainly there's going to be some version of Corlys and Daemon on the stepstones. There kind of has to be. You wouldn't cut that out. So,
and it's early enough where that would make sense. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Like I can't tell what's going to be where season 1 will end. Maybe with the births of the third generation. I guess like Rhaenyra's sons.
I think they're going to take it all the way up to 129 and like drops. I think they're going to leave us with the war just having started, maybe Lucerys and Arrax, or maybe just them seizing the throne, somewhere around there.
Lucerys dying? You think that's where
basically, yeah.
Dang.
No. I think so. I think they're going to get through all that.
That's only like 3 seasons worth of material if they do that.
I mean,
dang, that's, yeah.
I think 4 is probably the right number Because I think it's possible that they want to go on and do some other, do the Conquest or stuff like that. They've got the Corliss show. They've got other stuff in development. And it's like the longer something runs, the more unwieldy it becomes. And there's no reason to milk it if you've got other shows in development too. But yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're right. You have to end it with the dance starting. You can't have 2 or 3 seasons of prep.
Yeah, that would be too slow. And there's not. It just makes sense to me because 120 AC is when the things turns dark. Laena and Laenor die. Joffrey dies. Kristen Cole gets mean. Everybody gets mean. Aemon gets Vhagar. The kids hate each other now. Like, now we're just about ready to start the fucking shit. So
it's so bad that Rhaenyra's living on Dragonstone. Like, they separated after Aemon got his dragon. So
right, they keep the kids separate from then on. Right. So, yeah, I think that's where we'll get to. And I think everything we saw in the trailer is season 1 too. Yeah, Daemon and Rhaenyra's wedding. That's only a few years before the war breaks out too. So
yeah, we'll see. I'm excited. I just hate the fact that now we're back to like watching an episode, waiting a week for the next episode. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh, that week. That's when I put out my YouTube video and make tons of money.
That's true. This is the time for us to come up with all the theories. Yes, you're right. Okay, thank you. I needed that.
No, it'll be good. Now I'm going to do a post-game show, right after it's over. And I don't care how many other people are doing it. I'm doing one. I always do one, so I will. And then I'll have a video during the week on 5 things you missed or 5 things I liked or something like that. So
okay,
we'll be busy.
Good. I'll be there. Awesome. Did you want to talk about the other dragon seeds?
Yeah, and I also want you to get into your list of nicknames because that's pretty righteous. I need to hit the restroom real quick. Can you get into the other dragon seeds, and I will come back and join you in about 60 seconds.
All right, cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So obviously,
we drank lots of water. We drank lots of water today. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, go away. This is my audience now. All right, guys. No, I'm just kidding. So obviously I found my dragon seed that I identify with, and maybe you'll find one for you. So we have Hugh the Hammer. And the thing with me is, whenever I see someone new riding a dragon that's already been claimed by someone, I always like to kind of connect the dots. For example, Hugh the Hammer rides Vermithor. And first of all, you already know that you have to be some sort of superhuman brave soul for the dragon to even bend its neck to you. So it's already showing you that Hugh the Hammer already has something special about him. But it's the fact that it's Vermithor, which was Jaehaerys' dragon. It's so my brain goes to well, what's the parallel between the how could Vermithor have a rider like Jaehaerys and go to Hugh Hammer? And if you don't know, Hugh Hammer, he's a blacksmith's bastard. He's huge. So think of towering guy, build of the Hound. But he ends up being a traitor. He ends up being a turncloak. So it makes me think that is this one of the great characters? Is this one of the characters that's written as someone who is, this big brood and turncloak? Or is he actually saving someone? You don't know. He might have a love interest in the show. Maybe they kidnap her and holding her as a threat. And okay, you have to do what you have to do at Tumbleton, or else we're going to kill her. So basically what I'm saying is I'm looking at who else rode their dragons to decide these people's characters. So that's Hugh the Hammer on Vermithor. Then we have Ulf the Sot, or Ulf the White. He's on Silverwing. Y'all already know Silverwing was last ridden by good Queen Alysanne. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Silverwing?
Hold on. Yes, you're correct about that. But before we move on from Vermithor and Hugh the Hammer, because I know you like the parallels between the dragons and the dragon riders, did you mention that Vermithor is called the Bronze Fury, right?
No, I did not mention that because I didn't know that because I'm in class. You're teaching me.
So let me just get this right. It's bronze something. And obviously, if you're a smith and you hammer things, bronze is something you can hammer. And hammered bronze is a phrase that he uses a lot. He uses it to describe the surface of the God's Eye Lake when the sun shines on it. It's like the sun's beating down like a hammer on bronze or something like that.
Wow.
Bronze, it just described bronze fury is Vermithor. So
Fury.
Hugh the Hammer is a smith. He can hammer out metals, and he is literally big and angry. So it's definitely, maybe that's why Vermithor liked Hugh. Maybe that's a thing, like the dragon's like, kindred spirit or something. Or it's just an authorly clever thing. But yes, Ulf the White rides a dragon that's like silver and pale, Silverwing, right?
Right.
So
who was last ridden by Alysanne.
Right, who is a Night's Queen figure with white, pale hair and blue eyes. Yeah. So
she was known for like her heart and her good nature and how everyone felt comfortable around her and how she stood up for the little guys.
She's one of the most just people. She's one of the people that shaped the world to be like a better place more than anyone else in the history of Westeros, for sure. Yeah, I should probably do a character study on Alysanne or just Jaehaerys and Alysanne and make sure, do a good time on each one or something. But yeah.
Please do. There's so much to get into on that one. But how could Silverwing bend its wing to Alysanne and then Ulf the Sod?
So obviously Alysanne and Ulf the Sod aren't similar people. I was more thinking about like just comparing some of the various symbolic markers of the riders to the dragon. So they would compare to the dragon in different ways, I guess. So one thing I've noticed, starting with symbolism, I'm always looking for Knight's Queen and Knight's King parallel characters. And one thing I picked up on is that all the Knight's Queen figures, a lot of them are associated with weirwood or ice dragons. So, like, for example, Morna White Mask, Val has the weirwood brooch, Lyanna has a blue winter rose crown, so that's like a blue frosty halo. She's got moon symbolism. She's also the Knight of the Laughing Tree, a weirwood warrior. And also a lot of the Knight's Queen women are warrior women as well. Alice Karstark is another one. She's called Winter's Lady when she gets married. Let's see. Jane Poole with her sigil and symbolism, and she looks like a frozen corpse, unfortunately, when she gets married to Ramsay. Married, with quotes around it. And Visenya is an important template marker, okay? She is one of the most important Knight's Queen archetype figures. She rides Vhagar. Vhagar is covered in ice dragon symbolism, okay? So it's more obvious when Aemond One Eye rides Vhagar because Aemond One Eye has a blue star sapphire eye. And we know that the constellation, the Ice Dragon, has a blue star, which is the North Star, and it's either the Eye of the Dragon or the Eye of the Rider. So when Aemond gets on Vhagar, he's becoming the Ice Dragon constellation. Now, one of the stars near our current pole star, and which used to be the pole star in the past, is Vega.
Vega?
Vega. The star named Vega.
What it's called?
Which is one of the brightest stars in the sky. And so they've named Vhagar Vega. Also, there's the constellation of Draco, the dragon. It wraps around the pole star. So the ice dragon itself is just an adaptation of Draco. And then they've pulled the name Vhagar from Vega. Then he puts Aemond One Eye on Vhagar so that it looks like the ice dragon. Okay, so you throw all this together. Now, Visenya, she's cold and stuff, so maybe that makes her like the Night's Queen. But it's way more specific. So when you look at King's Landing, there's 3 hills. There's the Hill of the King, Aegon's Hill. It's got the red keep. That's the sun. Okay, now, obviously, Planetos is a 2-moon system, or at least it used to be. Once there was a second moon in the sky, it broke open and birthed dragons, or maybe comets or meteors or something, right? So the Hill of Rhaenys has the dragon pit on it, which literally broke open and birthed dragons. And how did it break open? It was when a dragon flew into the dome of the stadium and cracked its head on it, literally breaking out like a shell. Okay? So this is the moon like an egg cracking open and birthing dragons, and now it's broke as fuck and it's all burnt black. So all the places that mirror a home of dragons, like Valyria or Asshai, they're all broke as fuck and burnt. And Dragonstone is ready to become that whenever its volcano erupts. Okay, so it's an implied explosion there. So that's the Fire Moon template, the broken ass home of dragons that's all burnt. That's the Fire Moon. The Ice Moon is the hill of Visenya. It has the Sept of Baelor on it, made of white marble. Looks snow white. It's veined with blue sometimes, the white marble, so that you have the blue blood of the others coursing through it. And it's then you have the warrior sons that pour out of the Sept of Baelor. They are dressed in mirror armor, just like the others, okay, who wear ice mirror armor. And the sigil of the warrior sons is a crystal sword on a field of black, just like another holding an ice crystal sword out at night, which is the only time that they come out. So everything about the Hill of Visenya is others, ice symbolism, ice moon stuff. Everything about Rhaenys is fire moon stuff. And basically everything with Rhaenys, Visenya, and Aegon follows this template. So during the conquest, Rhaenys goes to Dorne, which is full of more fiery symbolism, burnt ass stuff. She burns everything. Then she gets shot out of the sky, just like a moon, and falls to the ground, just like a meteor, okay? Visenya goes to the Vale of Arryn, where it's all icy, ice castle, ice white, everything, white sigil, and that's where she goes and conquers. So on and on and on and on. Visenya is the Ice Queen, and now that we got Vhagar's coloring, it's blue and bronze and green. So you've got icy colors, and you've also got green for the Green Sea, which is a whole different thing. And Vhagar, when Vhagar dies, she dies in the water. She falls into the God's Eye Lake and is, under the water. So all of that is to say, let me see back what we were talking about originally. Alysanne and Silverwing is very similar, there we go, to Visenya and Vhagar. Alysanne has blue eyes instead of purple, and her hair gets white as she gets older. So by the time she goes up to the wall, if you will, and has castles named after her, she looks like a Night's Queen with blue eyes, pale hair, and she's flying on Silverwing, who is a silver and white dragon. So we can think about that as an icy looking dragon. So it's all of a piece. Also, there's even more parallels. Silverwing goes to live on an island in the middle of Red Lake, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Vhagar comes to rest in the middle of the God's Eye. So they both retire to a lake with an island in the middle. One of them dies, one of them doesn't, but kind of similar.
It's just interesting you said how important Visenya is. And it's like, it's interesting you said how important Visenya is. Put a button in that. And then you were saying how, like, when the dragons exploded from the moon and when they came up out of Valyria, the Doom, and even the dragon pit, those 3 times ended in destruction for the dragons. And then you said, now going back, you said Visenya is the most important. Her dragon, Vhagar, is fighting in the war that causes the end of all dragons.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And Vhagar survives a lot longer. And just as the Ice Moon potentially is the one that is still in the sky. Remember, one moon blew up a long time ago. Rhaenys dies early on. And then Vhagar, the Ice Dragon, and Visenya live on a long, long time. And then, yes, Vhagar comes to be involved in this war where the dragons are ended. And spoiler alert, we're going to get the destruction of, or at least the bombardment or fracturing of the remaining moon to cause a new long night disaster if George ever gets off his ass and writes Winds of Winter and tells us about it. But
that's crazy. I need a moment to process. I'm like, dang. Because you could basically say the Vhagar and Caraxes fight is what ends the war. Everything that happens after that is like just not tying it up in a bow. But those were the two big daddies, Aemon and Daemon.
And so when you look at that fight, it's very much an ice and fire archetypical fight. So now that I've outlined Aemond One Eye with the blue eye and the ice dragon and shit, Daemon, well, he's all red and black. He rides the red dragon. He's a true Targaryen. He is as dragony comes. And when he attacks, here's the great thing. He makes an eclipse first. So he flies up real high, and then he gets the sun at his back so that the sun will be in Aemon's eyes as he's dive bombing, and they won't see him coming. But what that means is that he's effectively made an eclipse, because that's the whole thing about the old legend from Qarth. Once there was a second moon in the sky, it wandered too close to the sun and cracked. That is talking about an eclipse. That's the only way you can see the moon close to the sun, is literally during a solar eclipse. So there's some sort of eclipse that happens, and George recreates that a lot. In the Oberyn-Gregor fight, he has the mountain move so that the sun's at his back, and then he starts launching meteor-like stone fists at Oberyn. The dragons love to do that. Dany's dragons take turns dive bombing each other. They put the sun at their back and then dive bomb. It's an instinct that the dragons have. So they recreate eclipses and moon meteor attacks by instinct, essentially. And Daemon is the best one. So they fly up and then basically, get the sun at their back, and then they dive bomb down, and then it's ice and fire, boom. Then they fall into the God's Eye, and the God's Eye Lake is a symbol that's very important, because obviously it's the home of the Isle of Faces, which is literally an island full of the gods' eyes, right? The eyes of the trees are the eyes of the old gods. So God's Eye Lake.
Is that where the pact was?
Yeah, supposedly, right, yes.
Okay.
So the lake that's like a god's eye is obviously meant to parallel the trees that have the eyes of the gods. So
that are watching.
So right. So the ice and fire dragons kill each other, and then they dissolve into the Weirwood Net, or they go back to the gods, or however you want to interpret it. But it's a very final place for the ice and fire dragons to sort of all come to a rest in the water. So that to me is some sort of metaphor for the end of the story, where there'll be no more others and no more dragons, and it all dissolves back into the ether or something like that.
It's almost like that's the only thing that could defeat those two dragons. Like that's like the fitting kind of like resting place type of thing. Like important enough, mystical enough to, wow.
Right.
Wow. Next, we have Adam of Hull.
We were talking about Silva.
Well, yeah, off the salt, he was pale, so he's one of the ones that people were immediately like, yeah, he's a dragon seed. And he was a man at arms. So is a man at arms like what Jory Cassell does, that type of? Is that what he was?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's just a soldier essentially.
There's a blood moon tonight. I'm gonna put out some crystals. Let's put out some crystals, chat.
So good, yeah. It's very, very apropos talk of eclipses and stuff. Yeah, very nice.
Nice. Okay, so Adam of Hull, he rides Sea Smoke. Isn't that your favorite dragon?
He's one of mine, and of course Adam being such a badass, and they visited the Isle of Faces. So supposedly, I believe it.
I feel like he's worthy enough to. The thing about Isle of Faces, for me to believe whether you've gone there, you have to be worthy. Something about your character has to be worthy for the island to be visible to you, I feel like. So I believe
totally.
it.
Yeah.
So he's 15 years old when he claims Sea Smoke, which is, that's pretty impressive. Grown men are being burned to death, okay? He's 15 years old. He does have a younger brother, Alan. Alan doesn't
yeah, actually, let's stop for a second. We do hear about Targaryens claiming dragons when they're young, but that's like they went to the dragon pit and the dragon tamers helped them, or they had the dragon in their cradle and they've been bonding with it. Like, this is trying to tame a wild dragon at 15. So yeah, that's pretty ballsy. Definitely got to take the cap off to Adam there.
Silver hair, purple eyes. The interesting about Adam, so one of the characters that I hope they have is Mouse.
Yeah.
Mouse is Adam and Alan's mom, and
Yeah.
she kind of has like a badass story of just like a woman who like who would she be compared to? Like maybe a successful Shay, a better Shay, where she's like, because in this world we're focused on the kings, the queens, the lords, the noblemen, but what about the small folk? What about people who aren't born with a silver spoon in their mouths? How do they little finger their way to success? So Mouse, she is interesting because she, doesn't, she's poor, she's a peasant, but she works on these ships and she's able to amass, I think, 7 ships, like her own fleet. And she was kind of just like a salt wife to some Valyrian. So it's for her to just be like a bed warmer to boss up and have her own fleet. Like, I want to see that. I want to see these type of people in the story because we keep seeing Sansa prototypes of the perfect lady. And I want to see what else there was because not everyone had the opportunity to be a perfect lady.
So this is an example of George's growth as a writer, and he's talked about this. George is an old white guy, okay? He knows that sometimes. Sometimes he seems a little less self-aware, but he does occasionally
He's
act.
pretty good.
He's aware of the fact that he grew up in a different time. Let's put it that way, and that times have changed. And he's talked about some of the like the roles that he wrote in the story. And I don't want to really paraphrase because I can't remember the exact quote, but essentially he has talked about the idea that there is room for more types of roles than what was in the original story. And I think that Mouse is a great example of him spreading out in Fire and Blood. Rhaena is another one. The entire Rhaena Dragon Egg plot line, Alyssa Farman, like this is something that this is not a story that we saw in the regular Song of Ice and Fire. So I think in Fire and Blood, George has made a conscious effort to continue growing as a person, as a writer, and to find different types of stories to include in the world. Because he's trying to portray a real world. He's always gotten good points for putting himself in the perspective of lots of different people, including young girls and everything else. And he does a good job at writing women as characters and not like some dude's weird idea of a woman or something. He gets good points for that. So I think he's just continued to get better at that as he goes. And Fire and Blood's going to give us an opportunity to see some new different types of stories. And I hadn't thought about Mouse that much. There is so much when you read Fire and Blood the first time. But hearing you talk about it, like, that is a pretty friggin' awesome story. And it leads to Adam and Alan, who are super awesome. And then Alan becomes the Lord of Valerion and marries Baela. Right?
Yes.
Baela Targaryen. So that's a friggin' awesome couple. Because I don't think they're going to end this. People have wondered about Fire and Blood, like, well, the end of Fire and Blood's kind of grim. Rhaenyra has a bad death. A lot of people have bad deaths. So they're just going to kill everyone and then stop the story. That's depressing. Like, no, if you go a little further, there's a whole bunch of sunshine that kind of comes in right after
Aegon
that.
3 being reunited with Viserys, if they ended on that.
Yes, that the marriage of, like I said, Alan coming to power as the new Valerion, his brother being honored, Baela and Moondancer. There's some nice little, and then of course the Starks come in at the end and punish a bunch of traitors. Like there's some cool shit that happens at the end.
That's probably where they're going to end it with the Starks because, everything has to end with the, people love Starks. You had to have Jon going behind the wall, beyond the wall, and they're probably gonna do that. I mean, they are a good family. The Starks are a good family.
They're good at executing people too. So Cregan will be a crowd favorite for sure.
I can't wait, especially because when Cregan's introduced, he's 18.
He's young.
No,
he's young. Whatever it is,
yeah. So we'll see, and maybe we'll see him become the old man in the north. Because they gotta show, man, they better show Jace going to Winterfell. That's more season 2, season 3, but they better show that, and George better add some. George better freaking tell us whether there's dragons there, or dragon eggs or not.
Well, they definitely well, I hadn't thought about that, but that's something to look forward to in later seasons. Yeah, that whole Pact of Ice and Fire, Jace going to Winterfell, that definitely seems like the kind of thing they would expand on a little bit in the show. And not just to go back to the fact that George is working on these shows closely, like this is the opportunity for George himself to flesh out the canon of what he was thinking about. And going back to Mouse and George sort of looking for chances to tell different kinds of stories. Like the Black Valyrian casting probably didn't drop out of the sky. I like just saying that George is on board with it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he was not only on board with it, but that was partly his idea. Because
if George wrote Nettles, why can't he think of a Black Valyrian? Like, why is that so far fetched?
And he's also talked about, so this often gets misquoted as George originally was going to make the Targaryens black. No, that's not exactly true. It was at some point after I think the first 3 books, he said in an interview that it would have been an interesting choice, but he had the idea 10 years too late. And also there would have been a risk of wandering into this dark elf trope where the only place you see black people in fantasy is as these dark evil elves sometimes, and that gets a little weird. But the point is that George has discussed the idea and has said this would have been an interesting choice. I might have gone down this road. So the idea that we now have black Valyrians and some black dragon riders, this just to me is a logical extension of the kind of how George has been developing his writing and working to, again, just broaden the world and make it more realistic by including more kinds of stories. So, yeah.
Yeah, no one batted an eye at the Black Kingsguard in Dorne. No one, so there's room for it. I have a question for you. It's a Jerry Springer question. Who to daddy? Who do you think is Adam and Alan's daddy? Sea Snake? Laenor?
It's got to be the Sea Snake because, it depends. It depends on whether they're going to portray Laenor's It depends on whether or not Laenor is bisexual or gay, really. If he's bisexual, because he sleeps with several different, he has like a lot of different romances. He's definitely a passionate dude. So the idea that he could father a bastard is believable if he's interested in women sometimes.
2 bastards. Because Adam and Alan have the same father.
True.
So they're a year apart.
We're led to believe that it's Sea Snake, so it's probably Sea Snake, right? But it might not even be Sea Snake, though. I think they also want us to consider the idea that they're just more dragon seeds.
But why does Sea Snake make Alan give Alan Driftmark?
Because he doesn't have any heirs.
Okay.
And it's like better to have heirs that look right and are valiant and carry on the family name, than someone. But probably they're his, I would think. Yeah.
Sea Snake doesn't sit right with me just because of like Rhaenys. Like I want to believe that like he would never cheat on her. Like every naive girl that's ever lived, like he'll never cheat. But
and two of them means there was an affair that was going on for a while, doesn't it?
Yeah. And Mouse is very defensive about it. First she said Laenor, and they said it was like only later that she kind of admitted that it was Sea Snake. But if she's defensive about it or trying to protect someone, that means there was some love there.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Or she's scared for her life because they're so mean.
Well, I was just going to say, which claim is better for legitimacy? I guess it doesn't matter. They're royal bastards either way, essentially. So,
yeah, one kind of makes Laenor look good. Like I think that makes Laenor look good that he has real heirs, right? And
maybe they think the idea that they're Laenor's bastards helps make it more believable that he fathered the strong boys. Be like, no, he totally makes children sometimes, he's into that.
No, it doesn't, because Adam and Alan both have silver hair and purple eyes.
Oh, true.
So why is it that when Laenor sleeps with Mouse,
that's true,
the kids come out Valyrian, but when Laenor sleeps with Rhaenyra,
okay, yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. That's a mess. Then I don't know.
But yeah, Mushroom says Sea Snake's the daddy. So usually don't people believe Mushroom?
I wonder what Rhaenys' opinion is on all that then. That becomes the question.
That all dragon seeds are traitors and seize them and kill them. And that's what she thinks about.
But
No,
maybe not though. That's the thing is like maybe there's something like the dragon seeds have been honored mostly by the lords of Targaryen in the past. So like they have a different
yeah,
culture around it on Dragonstone, where it's just like I think the Targaryens are just more like polyamorous and stuff in general, because
that's true.
it seems like the original Rhaenys philandered a bit.
She had to. I also think it's just about like being with your family, like being married to your family, where it's like I can see the Targaryens like being grossed out that they have to consummate, pop out airs once in a while. So I could see them being like, oh, whatever, close my eyes, bang my sister. But then my meaningful relationships or my actual fun is everyone else.
I mean, royalty in medieval times did that anyway. So let me throw a weird
Yeah.
theory at you that I think you'll like. The theory is Aegon the Conqueror has no legitimate children. So
Oh,
so Aenys is Rhaenys' child with somebody else because she philandered,
singer, a
and
singer.
a singer. And Maegor the Cruel is Aegon's child, but he was only born because Visenya used sorcery. Because Aegon essentially is barren, and his seed is infertile. And so the only true child he had was Maegor the Cruel, and the Targaryen line, of course, did not pass through Maegor. So the entire
Yeah.
Targaryen line actually comes from Rhaenys and not Aegon. That is a theory. I don't know if that's true, but
It reminds me of Harry Potter because, like, Voldemort, he was born because his mom put a love potion on his Muggle father, and that's why Voldemort doesn't know love because you're not supposed to have a baby under a love potion or just any magic because then it's not like consummated out of real love or whatever. So I could see that with Magor, like if she created him with magic, that's why Magor is also infertile, and Magor has all these other things
because
wrong with it.
Maegor is fucked up, dude. He is fucked up. His seed is wormy. He has like 5 lizard children. He is obviously like insane and psychopathic. Like that is not Maester propaganda. I've seen some people
Yeah,
try to say that, and maybe a little bit's exaggerated, but that dude was a violent psychopath. There's no doubt. He did way too many things that are factually beyond dispute.
we're gonna fight because I call him Magor the Cool. Magor did what he had to do for the realm. Okay.
Okay. Well, you if you want to take a completely amoral perspective and only a
What do you
tactical
mean?
perspective, he still failed though. That's the thing is he in the end
The
he failed.
warrior sons, he put them in their place. He did what Amy's couldn't.
I
If
mean,
Magor wasn't
he
there,
locked him inside a sept and burnt them alive if that's what you mean.
problem done. Listen, did you hear a peep from them? Were they attacking Amy's on his progress? No, because they were dead.
What about all the
If
women? What about the women though? You can't excuse that. The
I can't
Haraways
excuse
and
that.
I mean,
I can't excuse that.
yeah.
But if Magor wasn't there, the townspeople would have like killed Aenys, and there would have been no Targaryen line because Aenys was so weak.
Well, but
He
it's
was
not
like
an
one
either
day
or.
away
Like
from them,
Aenys' flaws don't make Maegor
but he was needed. He did what he had to. All I'm saying is he did what he had to do, and we
But
benefited from.
that's taken the perspective of saying that the existence of the Targaryen dynasty is more important than like people's lives or right and wrong and stuff. So you have to adopt the perspective of I'm amoral and my most important priority is maintaining the Targaryen dynasty. Then you could start to make an argument for Maegor, but in the end, his cruelty was his undoing and generated too much antipathy, and
Yeah,
that's why he wasn't successful. So it's kind of like
too many
Tywin.
haters.
Tywin is wrongly held as a genius when actually all of his shortcomings came home to roost, and he's a tremendous failure if you look at it. So
It's exactly what you said: amoral and just concerned with his family. But honestly, that's the lens that I look at it. That's why I could identify with Magor because I'm like,
well, it's
as
it's
long as
written it's written so that you can take these different angles and understand how different people act. Like that's the skill of the writing, yeah, for sure. So in any case,
yeah,
it's an interesting theory. Yeah, Aegon was infertile,
fertile.
and it's Rhaenys that everyone descends from, which is kind of cool. So yeah, maybe the Iron Throne is cursed. I wondered if it's the Black Dragons that are cursed because they
Wow.
are different from all the other dragons. They're always bigger and they're always loners. You look at Cannibal, you look at Drogon, who grows bigger, faster, and ignores the other two dragons, or fights with the other two dragons even. So, I mean, it's total tinfoil, but I just wondered, like, did the Bloodstone Emperor create the black dragons? Are they a different breed? Are they, twisted, or I don't know?
Even Drogon's egg was bigger. It seems to say like it comes from a different mother, like a different whole, like another breed. No, I think there's something to it.
And the wyverns in Sothorios give you a clue about this, because there's this one kind of wyvern that's like something shadow, and they're bigger and they're black and they're the most terrifying ones. Let me look it up. It's a pretty cool little thing.
I was going to say something and I forgot about the black dragons.
There's just those three.
Yeah. No, that is something good to look into. Why do they all seem to kind of have like the same temperament too? I mean, Cannibal is a little bit. So I think Cannibal. So when I was rereading this and they're describing the dragons, even like all the dragon seeds getting on them, you could see that the dragons definitely have their own personalities. But I think that each of them is a representation of, like the cannibal is a representation of the Targaryens eating themselves, right? The dance of the dragon is a cannibal. Like
right.
what are they doing? They're destroying themselves. They're fighting with each other. And it's the biggest one, and it's untamed. So that's the dragon that nobody can get, because in the end, that's what's going to happen is we're going to eat each other and consume each other, and we're all going to die. But just some of the other ones like Silverwing, or how some of the dragons like fly in different directions, react different ways. Some of them scream, some of them cry. I sent you the one where Vhagar, when Vhagar is on Storm's End, and freaking when who's
Lucerys and RX?
Huh?
Are you talking about Lucerys and RX?
Yes. Like just the different personalities. Some dragons roar, some dragons are more cautious. It's very interesting. So I think it's showing like the different, how some Targaryens also having different personalities, how some people were all in. I haven't fleshed this all out, but some people were like all in, all about it, ready to go. Some people were just roaring and were just angry and just lashing out. Some people were doing like blitz, like secret, like what am I trying to say? Like those fast attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell that I'm so well versed in?
Well, like Meleys is a good example. She was like, oh, she's old and sluggish and had grown docile, but was still fearsome when roused. So
right.
Caraxes was the meanest of the dragons in the pit at the time. So like they do have different personalities, but check this out. Minty mentions a quote that I love to bring up, which is that Barristan talks about the Targaryen dragons having been bred for war. He says they were bred for war, and it was in war they died. So that sentence, if you think about it, says a lot. It means that dragons, just like hounds or thoroughbred horses or something, they're bred for different purposes. A plow horse and a racehorse, you don't want the same things. So I've often pointed out that making fused stone, whether it's the highways or castles, it requires a dragon. But you don't want the fiercest, wildest dragon for that. You want the most controlled dragon who puts the flame right where you want for exactly when you want, and then stops and doesn't eat the road crew.
Yeah.
Okay? So the road paving dragon is not Balerion the Black Dread. And so it's likely that when you go back to Valyria, they had all these different families, right? And it seems like the different families had different assets. Like the Targaryens, they apparently did not make Valyrian steel because after the Doom, they didn't have that secret. They also didn't have any dragon horns. And all their dragons were war dragons. So some other house probably got rich as fuck breeding the best road paving dragons, okay?
Or racing dragons. Maybe there's traveler dragons like that have a wingspan that can soar.
Yes.
Like maybe there were races, maybe there were
like Janera Balerion, who took her dragon down into Sothorios for like 3 years. That was probably a glider. Yeah, exactly. So when you get down to the modern day with the Targaryens, we're looking for personality differences. But if you go back, you can see that there was probably even more variance because they were bred for different things. So the Targaryen dragons are mostly war dragons. They have been bred to be nasty and to be vicious. And that is what they are for the most part.
And I think part of being war dragons is also, I've always found it weird that the dragons attacked each other, especially like what Silverwing and Vermithor were. Remember, they were when they belonged to Alysanne and Jaehaerys. The dragons fell in love because their riders were in love, or they would curl up together. But then there was some point at the dance where, was it Silver? No, where they fought each other, and I felt like the only reason, I feel like maybe dragons in their natural state wouldn't fight each other. Like they would be building roads, flying, and but the dragons bred for war, like the Targaryens did, these are to me the weird dragons who are. Because honestly, why would these dragons fight each other? I mean, sure, your human needs you and they're in danger. That's one thing, but the way the scales, like the way George describes these fights, this is cutthroat even for animals.
Well, so think about animals that are bred for fighting. Mostly this is really dark stuff, cockfighting, dog fighting, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're going to pick the meanest breeds, the meanest examples, and then treat them mean. Like, that's how you do that. So, yeah, this is not a rooster that you want to feed from your hand here. So,
and they're probably not breeding dragons either. If you're bred for war, you're probably not going to have a lot of clutches of eggs. Like your body's not going to be a soft. They probably had breeding dragons, like dragons that would just.
That's
pop
possible.
Out eggs.
We do hear about obviously some Targaryen dragons that lay clutch, like Dreamfire lays several clutches of eggs. So it does seem like they're. Well, I'm actually agreeing with you because it's like there are some dragons which lay a lot of eggs. So maybe this is one that leans more in that direction. And Dreamfire, we don't hear about getting into like vicious fights, really. It just tries to escape the dragon pit when when the people come in. It tries to fly out. So maybe that's.
That's not fighting. That's just survival.
Yeah.
So we've got Ulf the Hammer, Hugh the Hammer, Ulf the Sot, Adam of Hull, and Nettles. So the four dragon seeds. Rhaenyra thought they were going to come and save the day, but what do you have to say about that? That like all their hope was on these dragon seeds, and like I mean, you could have kept them out of the war, and it would have been the same.
So to me, I'll make a sports analogy. Sometimes when a team is playing against a superstar, like a LeBron James or somebody like that, you think about it so much that it takes you out of your game, and you start making weird decisions because you're only thinking about trying to stop this unstoppable force. Vagar, is that presence. Everything that the Blacks do, they're always terrified of Vagar. What if Vagar's there? Well, we have 5 dragons, yeah, but how many will Vagar kill? And so they probably at times make reckless decisions based on that. Like the decision to do the whole dragon seed is very questionable. I want to go back and see if the Maesters encouraged it, because it seems like a definite pouring gasoline onto the fire kind of move.
No, it was Daemon. Daemon said exactly what you're saying. Daemon's the one that said, we can't go against Vagar. We need more dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, Vagar is kind of, not Vagar. Daemon is the best friend the Maester conspiracy ever had. Like, they're terrified of Daemon, but they can count on him to do Daemon-like things and inflame stuff. And I think they play Daemon and Otto against each other potentially pretty well. But
that's because Daemon must have fucked Otto's bitch, because the way Otto hates Daemon, it's like it's crazy. Otto's always the first one to be like, Daemon can't take the.
So here's where I think it comes from. It's because the High Towers have been putting all their eggs in the manipulate Viserys, he's our puppet king basket since the beginning. And Daemon
Right.
is the biggest threat to that from the beginning. He's constantly threatening to he's just out of control. He's out of their plans. He's the opposite of a puppet Targaryen. So that's why they're terrified of him taking power. And yeah, the thing is, Daemon is rumored to fuck everybody. Like, yeah, Alicent, yeah, and Rhaenyra, yeah, and it's like, okay. I mean, at some point, it just sounds like they're just accusing him of fucking everybody because he's Daemon. So I don't know.
Yeah, but it just seems that there's a little bit more to that because Otto hates him from the beginning.
That's
But
lame.
yeah,
If Daemon screwed Alicent while she was betrothed or married to his brother, that's fucked.
I'm sure he
Unquestionably.
did.
Yeah.
If Damon has the balls to say "heir for a day," could you imagine? Could you imagine if your brother just lost his child and you're in freaking the brothel talking about heir for a day? No, Damon doesn't give a fuck. Damon will fuck anyone's bitch. If he will say that, he will fuck anyone's bitch. But yeah, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to we watch this video and be like, oh, I was so right and David was wrong. Everything that I said came true. You're gonna see.
Well, it's we're about 2 hours here, so it's probably a good place to start wrapping it up. And you have been a great
Yep.
guest. This has been a lot of fun. So, closing thoughts, either from the chat or from you, Nettles. I think we've hit a lot of good stuff today. Oh, you haven't run through the nicknames. You made the list of
Oh,
nicknames
nicknames. Okay, so I went through and I was like,
because
I
George
was
is a
reading
great
Witcher's.
nicknamer, and when you put them all on the list, I was like, damn, that's a nice collection. So hit it up.
Okay, so we've got Bronze Bitch, Misery the White Worm, Realm's Delight, Clubfoot. That's
Okay,
just
hold
me.
on, hold on. So go a little slower. Bronze bitch.
Okay.
That's Damon's first wife from House
Yes.
Royce, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
they wear bronze armor, so that's why he calls her my bronze bitch. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
my bronze bitch. Then we have Misery the White Worm, Mysaria. Her coloring, she's from Lys. Realm's Delight is, of course, Rhaenyra. Then we have Clubfoot, which is Larry Strong. He's like pretty much Master Whispers. He has a clubfoot. That's why they call him that, which is really mean. Then there's Breakbones, which is his younger brother, Harwin.
I was just gonna say, in
Um,
medieval times, it seems like if there's something different about you, they just point at you and make a nickname. Be like, ah, it's floppier, you know.
that's also what we do in the hood. Like in the hood, you'll have like the worst. Your nickname will be like Stutter or like Cleft Lip. Like you're
It's brutal.
But yeah, Breakbones and then Ironrod. Ironrod's a good one because that's Jasper Wild. He had like 24 kids on like four wives, and all of his wives kept dying because he was putting too many children into them.
Okay,
So
so
that's why.
so the iron rod wasn't just his master of laws sort of rod of office, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was both. They said that he was like unwavering. He was like a Stannis, where it's like the law is the law. So yeah, he was that, but also in that
Unwavering,
other law.
back stood stiff and erect. Yes. Anyways.
Yes, it's like the male version of a WAP. Just and then we have Craghas Crabfeeder.
Thank you, by the
Uh,
way, for coming on my channel and saying all kinds of things I could never say. I really appreciate that. Go ahead.
I do what I can for the people.
We
Um,
appreciate it.
we have Sea Snake. We know Snake Snake. That is to ever do it. Full Frey. He was the one that thought that he asked Rhaenyra for her hand in marriage, and they're like, and then that's why I got the name. So rude. One Eye. We know Aemon. The Red Kraken. He's a Greyjoy that's bloodthirsty, and he's like only 18 or something. So they call it. He's killed a lot. Is the Red
I'm hoping
Kraken?
they bring him in. He hasn't been cast. I'm thinking he's a later season addition
Yeah,
because you don't
we
want to
gotta
throw
get the
too
Grey.
much at the beginning, but he should come in later. I'm hoping, yeah.
Yeah. Then we have the Queen Who Never Was.
Because I
We
think the
already know who
Ironborn are
that.
like icons. You don't even need to build up his story. You could just put Ironborn on the screen, show the squid on the sail, and everyone's going to be like, ah! So,
Yeah. Then I said the Queen Who Never Was. We know Rhaenys. Old Man of the North. That's Cregan. And we have Blood and Cheese. Blood for being. Is he a butcher? Blood is he's just an assassin or something.
Well, like one is, you'd have to read it. There's a reason why they're called that, but one has.
Yeah, I know Cheese is because he's a rat catcher, and then Blood is just he's bad. He's bad news.
His name is Blood. What do you think he does? He hurts people.
We have Hugh the Hammer. We talked about. He's also called Hard Hugh. And then we have Ulf the White, Ulf the Sot. I guess they both have two nicknames. Wow, privilege. We have Mouse. We have Longleaf the Lion Slayer. That's a good one. The Lion Slayer. That's a good one. He killed, I think, Tylan? No. He killed the Lannister in the Riverlands. We have Roddy the Ruin. I can't wait to see Roddy the Ruin. That's probably the best name on this whole list.
Hell yeah.
Roddy the Ruin. Then we have
the Fish Feed. The Fish Feed. That's a great fucking name. Fish Feed. Oh God.
The Fish Feed. Oh my gosh. The Fish Feed better look like the Battle of the Bastards. That's what that needs to be.
Yeah. Like hopeless visually. Thronging of suffocating humanity. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
Daron the Daring. He's like the only good thing that comes out of Alicent's vagina, right? He's the only good one. Maegor with teeth. I'm sorry,
I got a delayed reaction. I was like, what did you just say? Go ahead. Maegor with teats, that's Rhaenyra too.
And then Aegon the Younger, I put as a nickname because they italicized it in text, so it's a nickname, Aegon the Younger. Then we have Ben Buttercakes. That reminded me of Hot Pie. He's like just mentioned like as just a peasant or something in one of these, but Ben Buttercakes. And then we have WIllow Poundstone. She's the big like washerwoman who may or may not kill the little. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's his name is not Maegor, but it's similar to that. It's
okay, yeah.
Is it Magon or Maelor?
Maelor. It's Maelor. Did the chat say it?
No, I remembered that one.
Oh, that came out of your brain. Good job.
It did. Yeah, my stony ass brain pulled that one out. Yeah.
Then we have Black Trombo. Hey, I forgot who that is, but
he's a sellsword, I think, or something, or a pirate, one or the other.
He's from Essos.
Okay.
But then we have Red Rob Rivers. We have Kingmaker, which is Kristen Cole, and then we have Kinslayer, which is Aemon One-Eye. Then we have the Blue Queen. This is a dragon, Tessarion, but it's the only dragon I have here just because talking about the Night's Queen symbolism, like having a dragon nicknamed the Blue Queen and the stuff that Tessarion does, there might be some stuff there.
So the symbolism that I found that jumps off the page is when Tessarion is wounded and they need to essentially euthanize her, and they get somebody to do it whose sigil is a white knife on a field of blue, and he shoots her in the eye 3 times with an arrow, but his sigil implies a white sword. So you think of a blue dragon, an ice dragon, or a representation of the others, and the sword Dawn, or something like that. But I couldn't put it together to be specific. I was just like, okay, here are some familiar symbols. We got the Blue Queen, which could be representation of the Night's Queen or Frozen Weirwood Tree or fucking something like that. I don't know, but
there's something there. Like George is out of all the nicknames, you chose Blue Queen. Come on.
The white sword is one. Like when you see a white knife or a white sword name, you have to pay attention to it. So
yes. So that's the only one. Then I have Wat the Tanner. I forgot what he does, but that's a nickname.
Maybe he might be associated with the Dragon Pit. There's a few names of the people involved in the Dragon Pit. Somebody tries to slay a dragon. Somebody else. There's a few names.
Someone gets burned. And then we have Gaiman Palehair. He was like wasn't he like the 1-year-old?
He's like a kid. He's like a puppet king. Yeah, that gets during the Moon of the Three Kings. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have Garth the Hairlip, Sir Perkin the Flea. These are just, and then we
Perkin
have
the Flea. That's an awesome name. I love that one.
Sir Perkins. We have Sir Harmon the Iron Banger. Iron Banger. Okay. And then we have Tom Tangletongue. That's one of the mean ones again.
He's
And
an
then
interesting character, actually. His little part is interesting on Dragonstone at the end, yeah.
Tom Tangletongue. And then True Fire. That's the one. He actually sits the throne in between.
And then he becomes the taster for Aegon the Third, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's Gaiman Palehair, isn't it? Or whatever. One of them.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right. It's Gaiman Palehair. The True Fire is executed, but he's knighted first.
And then the last one I have is the Cunny King, and he's the one who I think he's the one that's 1 year old, and his mom is the sex worker, and they said that he is Aegon II's son. But yeah, that's what I have, folks.
Cool.
So all these names are good because I do a lot of
Swagger Dagger says Iron Banger. That was his college nickname. We don't believe that for a second, though.
But I do a lot of like trivia, like around town, like at bars and stuff, and I always win, or at least I come in second place. But the hard part is coming up with like a clever team name. So I just helped you guys out, okay? So you need a good team name. All of these would be for only the smart people would get it, but yeah.
And so looks like the point goes to the Iron Bangers again.
The Iron Bangers. Hey, every time
just
I would
can't
be like,
stop
hey.
them. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. And was it, right?
That was it.
Okay, cool. Well, this has been a really fun live stream, and I'm sure love to have you back on sometime during the season, talk some shit about some shit. So
please.
There you go. Yeah, definitely would love to have you back. This was fun.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you for dealing with me, chat. And thank you, George, for writing this and giving my room some art, putting things in my head that makes me happy. So I'm just happy.
And I think we're all getting pretty excited for the show. So yeah, we'll definitely be, keeping up the fun here. And like I said, I'll have the Maester Conspiracy Part 1 either on Tuesday or Wednesday, probably Wednesday. So look out for that. And thank you very much. Enjoy your NBA playoffs, guys. That's where I'm going next. And see you next time. Cheers. And thanks once again. Big thank you to Girl Nettles.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. See you guys.